Him, directed by Justin Tipping, is a new horror movie that chronicles the story of Cameron Cade, a football prodigy who ends up getting a really traumatic brain injury and trains under his idol, the guy that he worships, Isaiah White, played by Marlon Wayans. This was a movie that I've had on my radar for quite some time now, just because of Jordan Peele's name attached to it, and honestly, even more so than that, the premise and the idea of using football as a metaphor for greed and pride, and what it means to be toxically driven towards a goal. I think blending that whole world with horror is something really interesting and could have made for a really brilliant, pointed horror movie. That's obviously not what we got here. Him is an interesting movie. It's not bad. I am not in the camp that hates this movie. A ton of people online, a lot of the reviews I've seen already, a lot of people are hating this movie, saying it's a mess, it's this, that, and the other thing. And I agree with a lot of those sentiments, but I can't say that I hated any part of the film. In fact, this movie was inches away from being legitimately fantastic in certain places. It's just that as a whole product, him never really came together for me. Speaking on the positives first here, I think the supporting cast around Tyreek Withers is really fantastic. Marlon Wayans gives a phenomenal, very chilling, villainous performance. I think he really sells himself to this role, and how believable he is, how driven he seems, how manic almost about him, or not even almost, just how manic he is about his own success and his own fame and his own fortune. How odd he is to Cameron Cade in the movie really got under my skin, and I really feel like Marlon Wayans really knocked it out of the park here. Julia Fox is also great. Her and Tim Heidecker are in this movie, and I wish there were more of them in the movie. They're both very talented actors, and especially Julia Fox, I think that she could have excelled in this weird villainous role that she's in. And Tim Heidecker, I mean, he's funny as usual. I don't need to mansplain Tim Heidecker to you guys. I really wish they would have given more screen time to Julia Fox, because she was eating up the role. I think that she was born to play a character like this, and to get more of that would have been so good, and I really think she would have just ran with it. But unfortunately, her role is kind of minimized, and I'll get into in a minute why I'm bringing that up now, but I just know that she was doing really, really fantastic work. Visually, the movie is very interesting. It has a lot of energy to it. It's a very brisk, snappy pace. And in the beginning, that really works because we're getting to know and settling into this world, but we're also put off balance almost immediately. You're made to feel uneasy. Obviously, it takes a lot of visual cues from Jordan Peele movies and more modern contemporary horror. However, I do think that Justin Tipping, at the very least, made an attempt to put his own fingerprints all over this movie. It's very unique visually. It's not fantastic. I would say that it's about 50-50 when it comes to shots being, oh, that really is really working for the tone of the movie, or that looks gorgeous, or that was really weird in an interesting way, and then the other half being kind of like, okay, that was nothing. It was just really showing us nothing there. So it's a bit of a mixed bag in the visual department, but I would say it enhances the movie more than it hurts it. I think my three main issues with him, though, come down to the central performance from Tyreek Withers, the script, and the tone of the movie overall. I think Tyreek Withers isn't that strong of an actor. I saw him in I Know What You Did Last Summer earlier this year, and he was honestly one of the worst parts about that movie, and he really only fit the look for this film, if that makes sense. He looks a lot like a quarterback. He looks like someone who would be a football player. However, his performance, I never bought into it, and that's partially the script's fault, which we'll get to in a minute, but I really don't think he ever had the chops to handle this kind of role. What I mean by the script really failed him is that Cameron Cade is not an interesting character. He's very much so a blank slate, almost kind of like an audience surrogate character, and that is not what this movie needed whatsoever. We needed to see a lot more passion, a lot more drive, a lot more wanting from Cameron Cade, and it just seemed like he was instantly creeped out by everything, and then a flip switched, and then he turned into egotistical and all this stuff. So I really was not a fan of Cameron Cade, the character, and once again, Tyreek Withers' performance was not strong enough to really carry the not so great script. It happens with most of the characters, though, in this movie. They're very surface level. They're very there just to say dialogue at certain points. It's all in service of the story, which is interesting. I will give them that. The narrative being told here is fascinating to a certain degree. They are tapping into certain thematic elements and certain ideas that I really like and really lend themselves well to modern stylings of horror. However, this movie doesn't ever go deeper than just bringing up those topics, so it kind of becomes irrelevant by the end anyway, because they're not answering any questions, they're not touching on any subject, they're not giving any commentary or anything like that. They're just bringing up that, hey, the upper management of football is a lot of rich, weird old people. What do we do about that? And then never comment about any of that kind of stuff. So it's a very hollow experience, but again, it is riveting just because of that baseline interest that I have in the concept of this film. Where this movie really sinks, though, is the editing and the pacing and the tone of the film. It's all over the place. It is an absolute mess. Everybody has been saying this about the film, and yes, it is so messy and throws a lot of stuff at you at a pace that is way too quick. They never let any moment simmer. They never let any atmosphere build up. They want to throw as much as possible at you at the shortest amount of time, and it just feels like they're rushing. It feels like they're glossing over important elements of the story that should have been told. The editing comes off incredibly choppy and ruins the pace of the film, and I think that, again, it goes for so many different tones and dips its toes into so many different ideas that it never ends up coming out as one solid thing, just cool bits and pieces here and there. I will say this though, I am higher on the movie than most people. I think that it presents a lot of cool ideas. I think visually it's really interesting. I think that this concept is really fantastic. It's just the execution was really amateurish. I said in my Letterboxd review that Justin Tipping kind of needed to be a horror auteur already for this movie to really work and to really be firing on all cylinders. And this is his, third feature film, so obviously that's not going to happen. You're going to have some growing pains. You're going to have moments that show his lack of experience. And yeah, I think that the movie ultimately crashes under the weight of that because he couldn't really handle this kind of story. You needed someone who could really take this and run with it, and I just don't think he is that guy. And that's okay, he doesn't have to be, but in order for this movie to really excel and do what it wanted to do, you know, he needed to be, and he just wasn't. I would take this, though, over a lot of the slosh that is coming out as of recently. There is just so much mediocre garbage hitting theaters as of lately. 2025 has been a really rough year for new releases, and I mean, if this is the kind of movie I'm getting even a little bit excited about, then that definitely says something about the year, but it also says something about him and how it does stand out a little bit. It is worth seeing and checking out. It's just heavily flawed. So I'm going to give him a 3 out of 5. Please let me know what you thought of him in the comments down below. Sorry for another break in the content. That's going to stop happening now. The Blu-ray video is almost finished. I'm putting the finishing editing touches on it. Took me a while, so please check that out when it drops. And hopefully we'll be getting better new releases as the months go by and 2025 begins to wind down a little bit. So yeah, if you like what you're seeing here, subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and I will see you in the next review. Thank you so much.